Bills Mafia, Bills Mafia, what's going on? It's Dave Myers, owner and founder of Built in Buffalo. You're listening to or watching First and Five. That guy right there, first show, Jon Helmkamp. What's going on, brother?
How's it going, man? Stoked to be here. I'm excited for this. It's gonna be good. I'm really excited. This is a brand that I've been kind of paying attention to over the last couple of years, and just to stay around the Bills and contribute a little bit here and there and be able to talk shop. Heading into a very massive season for Buffalo is really exciting. I'm stoked, dude. I'm ready to get this thing going.
Yeah, we're gonna push through this 53-man roster. It's the initial 53-man roster. I do expect that there may be a little bit of movement, as we have a week and a half until the games actually matter on September 7th. So we're gonna break this thing down. If you guys could do a couple things for me, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, smash the like button. You're watching on Facebook, do the same. Hit that like button and share. If you're watching on X, drop some comments, share all that great stuff. So no surprise at the quarterback position. I think we'll start there because that'll probably take the least amount of time. Josh Allen, Mitch Trubisky, you good with that? Or how do you feel overall with the quarterback room? Same as last year.
I like it. I'm good with it. I think especially because there's an emphasis this year. It seems like on there being a little bit more play action potentially in the game and a little bit more rolling and stuff like that. It suits Trubisky's game the best if we're calling upon him for any break glass in case of emergency situations. So I'm good with it. You get the familiarity of Trubisky. He knows the system. He knows the team. He knows the O-line. It's good with me. I'm totally fine with him as the backup.
Yeah, I think, and like the old saying goes, is if Josh Allen goes down, it's we're in trouble either way. So if it's pick between Mitch Trubisky, Shane Buechele, and Mike White for a quarter, or maybe even a game in a pinch or something like that, I think we're in good hands there. Again, running back room, I don't think this is a surprise to anybody. We got James Cook, Ray Davis, Ty Johnson. I'm assuming you're good there. It's rinse repeat from last year, right? So.
Yeah, I'm excited about it, though. I like this room. I love it. I loved watching Ray develop in his rookie season. I was super high on him coming out. So when that pick came down, I was pumped when that happened last year. And then we got to see him in a featured role in the Jets game when Cook had to miss one. And we saw what he can do. Posted over 100 yards. It looked great. He's a physical runner. He's fine out of the backfield, catching the ball if needed. It's a great complimentary piece. And yeah, Cook just got the bag for sure. But with that, it doesn't mean that Cook's going to be seeing the ball 80% of the time. I think that Ray's going to get plenty of touches. You want to keep Cook fresh. You want him to be his explosive playmaking self late in the season and in the playoffs. So I think that Ray's going to have a big role in this offense. And obviously Johnson scattered in on some passing work. I like this room. I think it's a really, really nice running back room.
So let me ask you this, and I didn't pepper you with this beforehand, but so what do you think it means for a guy like Ray Davis now that Cook is locked up long term? Because we know that the 1-2-3 punch, I guess, if you will, it worked effectively for the Bills last year. 30 plus touchdowns, rushing. Joe Brady likes that control style offense. What do you think this means for Ray Davis? Is this something where we could see him in a couple years after his rookie contract's up, he leaves? Do you think that his role here is what it is and he's okay with that? Like, what's your thoughts on Ray Davis's long-term future?
I think so much of that comes down to the player and the people that are surrounding him and the voices in his ear, right? Like if you have an agent that is saying, hey, you've proven that you're talented, go get paid somewhere else, maybe he tries to go. But, he's going to be – let's see, he'll have his contract will expire a year before Cook's, 2 years before Cook's. Yeah. So I think that, Brandon's going to have to make some choices in terms of, do you just replace that at the end of it, or do you try to ink him? I don't know. I think there's a lot of ways that this can go over the next few years, depending upon play, depending on Cook's production, depending on injuries. You just never know at the running back position. If something goes wrong with Cook and Davis is the featured guy, then maybe he becomes the long-term plan. So I don't know. I think that's a kick the can down the road conversation. Let's just see how the next 2 years really kind of play out. And then reevaluate it and see what this means for the roster, as Davis's rookie contract is coming up.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Wide receiver. This was kind of what everybody was talking about since February, right? What are the Bills going to do? what additions are they going to make? Are the additions that they made enough? Are they going to keep 5? Are they going to keep 6? Well, they kept 6. Obviously, 𝐾𝐨𝐫𝐞, Keon Coleman, Joshua Palmer. I think we all thought those 3 based off of contracts, draft status, things like that. Obviously, Shakir got the big extension. We knew those 3 guys were locks. And then you have Curtis Samuel, Elijah Moore, and Tyrell Shavers. So kind of run me through your process. What do you think about the Bills wide receiver room? You think that this is the room that they're going to run with throughout the season? Do you think Shavers is on the roster for extended period of time? What's your thoughts on that?
I'm really curious. I know that Shavers has the special teams ability as well, which definitely helps his name try to stick on the 53. But, we're starting off the year. I guess now is as good a time as any to mention the IR and the suspended players, because that does factor in to how this roster is going to shake out in a few weeks. Maxwell Harrison and Tylen Grable start out on IR. Michael Hoyt, Larry Ogunjobi are suspended. So when you have those guys looking to make it back after 4 weeks, you're going to have to move some players around. It could be Shavers. If the rest of the wide receivers are healthy at that time, it could be Shavers that goes down to the practice squad to make room. There's a couple different ways that it could go. It could be a backup offensive lineman that gets moved down, like Ryan Van Denmark. There's a couple different positions that you could potentially look to put down to practice squad to make room for someone to come back. But I think that Shavers being wide receiver 6 is kind of a perilous spot to be for him. Super stoked that he made the roster. You finally have the Beans actually sign a preseason darling to the 53, which is great. 2 years in a row, Shavers has had great preseasons, and it's exciting to see him on the roster, but I'm not sure if he sticks for the entire season.
Yeah, it's going to be unique to watch because, like you said, we always fall in love with that one guy, and it's typically a wide receiver, and we wait and see cut day, and then they get cut. We're like, oh, man. So I think that they have a little bit of everything at wide receiver. I think Keon Coleman is primed. And I'm not just reading into the hype from Deion Dawkins. I'm not just reading into the hype from all the Bills beat reporters and stuff like that from what they've seen in practice. I really feel like he was trending in an upward direction. And then, ironically enough, the injury got hit with a helmet from Jordan Poyer. I think that kind of derailed his confidence a little bit. And I think having the head coach and the general manager kind of give him some tough love, something that maybe he's not kind of used to, saying, hey, you need to work a little bit harder. We need you to do more of this and that. On top of the fact that not a lot of people are talking about the fact that Mack Hollins is not here. So that physicality of Mack Hollins, I'm not saying Joshua Palmer is going to step into that role and be that guy, but I'm saying that physical type guy that is going to go up and get a ball. I think that Keon is primed to have a breakout season, and that is nothing but positive for the Bills if that happens, because all the other stuff will just kind of fall into place. Joshua Palmer separates. We know that. We know what 𝐾𝐨𝐫𝐞 is. And then whatever you get from Curtis Samuel, Elijah Moore, and Tyrell Shavers, I think is just icing on the cake at that point. So I like the dynamic of the room. I think that they have a little bit of everything. And I'm extremely intrigued by Tyrell Shavers. He's a big, tall receiver. Yes, he's been making plays in preseason, but can he do it against ones, when it counts, against, DBs that are starters? So we'll have to see. Tight ends, again, I don't think this was a shock at all. Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, and Jackson Hawes. I do like what I saw from Jackson Hawes in a little bit of playing time that he was able to show some production. Obviously, we know the blocking ability. He's been starting fights in practices and stuff like that. So what's your thoughts on the tight end room? You basically essentially replaced Jackson Haw, or you replaced Quentin Morris with Jackson Hawes. So what's your thoughts there?
That's an upgrade. And I like Quentin Morris, but Jackson Hawes, for what he is, which is a road grading tight end, that is an upgrade to a team that wants to impose its will along the trenches, that wants to have the running game be the bread and butter of what they do to set up Josh Allen in the passing attack. Jackson Hawes is so nasty as a blocker. Like, I know that it doesn't score you fantasy points, so a lot of people out there aren't going to be excited about Jackson Hawes. But for what he's going to do, the opportunities to come onto the field in some 2 tight end sets, maybe you sub out Kincaid and you put in Hawes on a running play, and then you have your 6 offensive linemen on the field at the same time, and you have Hawes pulling, and then you have Alec Anderson out there as well. And then you have those two just going hunting on the edge to create these massive running lanes for this running back room. It's going to be really impactful. I really love what he brings. And it sounds like he just kept getting better throughout training camp, kept proving himself, made some catches, showed some hands where I think there's room there, there's talent there that didn't really get utilized in college. So 𝐿𝐮𝐬𝐫 for me, I am so excited about a weekly 𝐿𝐿𝐫 pancake clip that's going to come around. And it's a tone setting type guy. Like you're talking about the physicality of Mac Hollins. Well, now you have 𝐿𝐿𝐫 in there. You have that just grit and that fire, and you pair him with this offensive line on some blocks, and you're going to get some really imposing play that's going to fire the whole offense up. And I'm really excited about that.
Let me ask you this. I've asked others, but I want to get your opinion on it. Does this potentially take snaps away from Alec Anderson? Because you know how the Bills like to use that sixth offensive lineman. Does this potentially take snaps away, or do you think that maybe they just are going to use them both, or figure a way out to get them on the field as many reps each as possible? Like, what's your thoughts on that? Because Alec Anderson, obviously coming off of he had that knee scope, I believe it was, this offseason. So the Bills signed him. The Bills like him. I think the Bills and Brendan Beane think that there's a contingency plan for him somewhere in the offensive line if David Edwards or Connor McGovern they're on expiring contracts if they don't come back. But he's always that sixth offensive lineman out there in those run packages. And now you have 𝐿𝐿𝐫 who can disguise things because he is a pass catcher. So what's your thoughts on that as far as those two and the dynamics of putting them in there to be run blockers?
I think my initial read on it is that Alec Anderson is probably going to carry a similar role, barring health. And like you said, if you have to put him in there to replace somebody, then you do. But I think if everyone's healthy, Anderson has a similar role. 𝐿𝐫 come into some different packages, and you're looking at ways to get them both on the field at the same time. But like you said, this does open up some opportunities for you to have some different packages and some different looks by having a 𝐿𝐿𝐫 on the field, because he doesn't have to go in and report as eligible. He's a tight end. Right. He doesn't have to go in as the sixth offensive lineman and be like, hey, do you see me? Yes. Yeah. Yes. Like, he doesn't have to worry about that, but he has great blocking ability. So it does create possibility for some new wrinkles, which is exciting for sure. Yeah. And I'm sure that as soon as that selection was made back in April, Joe Brady started drawing some stuff up in the dirt. But I'm really excited about what he brings. And I think that Alec Anderson is just such an important piece to this offensive line, and using those six offensive linemen is part of their identity now. And when you have those offensive linemen that are so used to working in sync and they know how to get to blocks together and play in unison and things that are really important, I don't think that it impacts his snap count very much unless they are intentionally trying to save him because he's dealing with an injury.
Yeah. I like it. It's going to be interesting to see, like you said, what Joe Brady, who is an absolute offensive genius, like some of the stuff that he's come up with, it just makes me think of, I was thinking about this the other day, like what happened in Carolina. It absolutely, dude was, I don't know, because he put together, I mean, look at Curtis Samuel, for instance. Like, that was his best year, was in Carolina. And I think he might have been a scapegoat for that season. I'm not sure, but Joe Brady he's an absolute mastermind when it comes to the offensive side of the ball. So, all right, let's work our way through to the offensive linemen. So, Dion Dawkins, David Edwards, Connor McGovern, O'Cyrus Torrence, Spencer Brown. Obviously, those were all locks. Cedric Van Pran Granger, which is nice that he didn't start the season on the PUP. Alec Anderson, Chase Lunt, and Ryan Vandemark. Do you think that there is a world where the Bills want to keep 10 offensive linemen and it's just kind of a wait and see? Because with Chase Lunt, I thought when I did my initial 53-man projection, I had 10 because that's what they rolled with last year. They had the two sets of 5, the consistent practice-based starters and backups. So what's your thoughts overall on how they structured the offensive line?
I do think that they might prefer to have 10, but because they're dealing with some injuries and some questionable play at other positions, like in the secondary, that they decided to maybe beef up some other positions a little bit more than they maybe originally had planned on doing so. But I think you just look at the defense as a whole, you look at the players that they have up and what they are capable of and the roles that they can potentially play. And I think that this is the most optimized way to do it. I think that if they didn't have depth pieces on defense where they felt like you can rotate in and have more line changes along the defensive line, or guys that have versatility in the secondary like Jon Helmkamp, which we'll get to, then maybe you would have just said, okay, well, let's beef up the offensive line and let's carry 10. But looking at the 9 that they have, I think that this is a group that they really like. Travis Clayton would be the next one up, and they got him back on the practice squad. But I think that they like this 9 that they have. Chase Lunt, very agile offensive lineman. That was such a Bills draft pick to snag him late, to just be a big move offensive lineman. Maybe he can kick inside to guard. Maybe he plays tackle a little bit similarly to a Spencer Brown kind of physique and skill set. So I like the 9 that they decided to roll with. And I think that by going with 9, you gave yourself more flexibility on defense to play around with some alignments and play around with positional, flexibility with some of these players.
Yeah, I do feel like that I don't know if there's a sweet spot for number, but I think the 9 that they got is, like you said, I think it's optimized. All right, so if you guys could smash the like button, I would greatly appreciate it. That helps support. If you can support us in any way, that would support us in the biggest way possible. That way we get through all these algorithms on Facebook, YouTube, and on X. All right, let's flip over to the defense. And if we're going fast, guys, it's because I'm sure everybody's seen the 53 yesterday. There's 400 versions of the roster out there that everybody's put together and graphics and done shows on. So we're just trying to get through this, and we're going to give you our spin on it. So that's why we're kind of just zipping through this. There's not a ton of surprises on here. Once we get to some stuff that's questionable, I feel like John and myself will definitely address it and talk about it. Defensive line. I don't think there was a ton here that was overly shocking to me. I feel like this was as expected. Greg Rousseau, Joey Bosa, AJ Epinesa, Javon Solomon, Landon Jackson, Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, TJ Sanders, Deanne Walker, and Dwayne Carter. So I will ask you first and foremost, when Michael Hoyt and Larry Ogunjobi come back, who are the 2 odd men out? I'm going to start there.
It's so rough. It's really hard. And I think that part of that is this is a bit of a cop-out. Part of it's going to depend on the development in the first few games. Does Landon Jackson, Deanne Walker, TJ Sanders, do they make impacts? Do they make it to the point where you can't send them down? Like, are they solidifying themselves as rotational guys that come in, that make their mark felt, and you say, we got to keep them up? Or do they look like they're getting lost a little bit? Are they getting caught up in some blocks and unable to get off? Are they not making some splash plays? I got to be honest, though. I think the person that I'm most nervous about is Dwayne Carter, which sucks for a 3rd-round pick from last year, but he just feels like a tweener.
Yeah,
he's a natural 3-tech, and they're asking him to play 1-tech, and it's just not the right fit for him. He doesn't have the mass and the strength to be able to drop a knee and anchor against a double team. Like, he just can't do that consistently. Maybe sometimes he can, but not on a consistent basis. I like Dwayne Carter so much, and I'm pulling for him, and I hope that he has a bit of a strong year too. But I think he's really at risk of, especially on the interior of the defensive line, Walker and TJ Sanders both potentially taking reps away from him, because especially for as disruptive as Walker can be at times, he has consistency issues, but that disruptive ability, that just feels like a Bills player to me, because they live and they die by the havoc plays. So get a guy in there that can rotate in and try to create some havoc. Same with TJ Sanders. So I feel like Carter is in danger for sure of potentially losing one of those spots. But then it raises the question, well, what are you doing at 1-tech? Like, I don't know what you do. You have Daquan Jones, that's it. Like, you don't have another like true 1-tech on this defensive line.
Because I've said all preseason, I said that Deanne Walker, he looks like a 1-tech, but he plays like a 3-tech. Just,
when he was a freshman, I'm sorry to cut you off. When he was a freshman at Kentucky, they lined him up out wide. They lined him up at edge for some reps. Like, he's more suited as a speed guy than he is on the interior, despite being a mountain of a human.
Yeah, and the athleticism that we've seen, and this is what the Jordan Phillips signing to me symbolizes that Dwayne Carter might not be safe on this roster, even because, okay, so we got to talk about Larry 𝐿𝐵𝐿 because he was playing out of position with the Steelers. Like they played 3-4. It was just not a typical where you would line up if you want him to be a one tech, but I think he's undersized too. I don't know. It's going to be, to me, the two guys that I think are the odd men out are Landon Jackson and Dwayne Carter. I feel like Landon Jackson is going to be a practice squad inactive guy that they just want to develop. They just wanted to get their hands on him, bring him in here with the new defensive line coach, and they just want to develop. They just want to get him developed. But I also don't think that they're 100% sold on AJ Epinesa. I think that they understand who he is. They understand what his ceiling is. He's a nice rotational defensive end. He is. He's going to get 6.5 sacks this year because that's what he does.
Yep.
But there's not been a time that I can remember AJ Epinesa where I was like, oh, okay, there he is. I get it. There's flashes in the beginning of the season typically, but then down the stretch, it's like, where's AJ Epinesa? So it's going to be really interesting because I just want to see Michael Hoyt just wreak havoc on this defensive line wherever they want to use him, however they want to use him. He looked really active in the preseason. I understand he was playing with 2s and 3s, but I'm extremely intrigued by his upside and his ceiling because I think we haven't seen it. We didn't see it with the Rams, and I think there's a lot of potential there. But to go back to Dwayne Carter, I didn't see anything from him in preseason. I don't know if that was they already know what they have. They weren't overly concerned. Like, I didn't know if he was going to make the 53, if I'm being honest. Like, yeah, I thought
I was really concerned.
I thought there was a chance that he wasn't going to make the 53, but then, you know, there was the whole Jordan Phillips stuff, and then it was confirmed that it was practice squad. And then it came out that he made the roster. And I understand everybody likes Dwayne Carter, and he's got ridiculous college tape, but I don't know if the Bills are putting him in a position to be successful with what the other parts that they have on the defensive line. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that they got 6 games to try to figure it out. Right. And then they got the bye. So they got another week after that before we figure out what they're going to do. And then you have the trade deadline. I believe it's right around this. It's right around that time. Usually it's around Halloween, right? The trade deadline. I don't know when the trade deadline is this year, as far as where the weeks fall for the season. But
Tuesday after week 9.
Yeah. So
Tuesday, November 4th.
So then you would have week 8 you got 𝐿𝐵𝐿 and Hoyt back. Right. So is that, you know, maybe you showcase Epinesa a little bit or Dwayne Carter, or I don't know. They're going to have to figure it out. I guess it's not a overly bad problem to have, but like you said, who's DaQuan Jones' replacement? Because I also thought that he might be a cut casualty based off of salary cap.
Yep.
Because the Bills are up against the cap. Like they had to be cap compliant, and they don't have much as far as wiggle room to sign guys in the next 10 days if they like, or to make a trade in season or sign guys in season. So
one thing, I love what this team did along the defensive line this offseason. I think you brought in so much versatility, so many different package combinations, which is going to be exciting. I like a lot of what they did. I just wish that Bean would just take one big dude, like just get me immovable mountain in the middle of the defensive line. Just one guy. Yeah. He doesn't have to be out there every play, but someone that can be a true one tech in the packages where you need a true one tech. Yeah. Someone that takes on more snap count in games against Baltimore, for instance.
Right.
Things like that. Like, that's the one thing that this defensive line is missing. You have DaQuan Jones, but then you don't have anything behind it. And there were so many guys in this year's draft class of that 330-pound variety that I thought would just be great additions, and he went other directions.
Yeah.
And I know that it's just not his type. It's just not their scheme. And I guess that they're just pot committed to that.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be another year where entering next year's draft class, I'm going to be like, hey, what about this guy? Big
Space
Citrus,
Eater,
for instance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, because when they aggressively moved up to get TJ Sanders, I was like, but we already have Ed Oliver.
Like, I know.
Like, and then people got mad at me because I tweeted out, well, that maybe that's Ed Oliver's replacement. People are like, how could you say that? I'm like, well, you got to think about now and the future. That's what Bean, like, that's like his
Yeah.
DNA is like now in the future. We want to win now. We want to draft, develop, and then we want to do this and that. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I do like TJ Sanders though. I think that
I do too.
I think he's going to be a really good fit on this. And so, and I don't want to keep going too far on the defensive line, but I think it warrants a conversation because of so much that was invested. Do you feel like, and I had this conversation on Billsology on Saturday, like, do you feel like the Bills, yes, we want them all to take that true one tech and all this stuff, but do you feel like they're just looking for just dudes, like athletes that are just going to win up front? It doesn't matter if they're a true one tech or three tech or whatever. And they're just going to put the best four guys out there that are going to be able to stop the run, that are going to be able to rush the passer, even if it's coming from an edge or a defensive tackle. Like, what's your thoughts on that? Do you think that like the defensive line is kind of evolving away from the stereotypical edge, one tech, three tech, edge, like, and they're just kind of doing whatever they can to just have athletic dudes up front?
Yeah, I mean, that's Ben Beans, Brandon Beans, Bread, and Butter. That's an alliteration I'm going to have to stay away from going forward. That's just what he's done. He wants athletes. I mean, it's ridiculous. The Bean special is someone that stood out at the Senior Bowl, that they met at the Combine, that has a RAS over 9. Like, that's the category of people that Brandon Bean drafts. Like, it was, and brings in on a 30 visit. Like, that's you checked every box for Brandon Bean, and now you're a Buffalo Bill. Like, that's how it tends to work. And I think that he just wants athletes. I think if he had it his way, it would just be a bunch of 4-eye and 5. Like, that would be his entire defensive line. Just a bunch of really athletic guys that are strong enough that he feels like they can win up front, hold their own in the run, and just chase and create havoc plays. Like, I think that that's the way that he looks at it, which I guess that's his philosophy, and we just have to embrace that, because he had every opportunity this year to do something different, and he didn't. He just kept doubling down on, I want athletes, I want athletes, I want athletes. Landon Jackson, Deion Walker, TJ Sanders. Athletic guys with positional versatility across the defensive line that can create havoc plays. Like, that's just what he seems to be wanting along the front. So I think that's his ideal mold. Now, is that the right thing to do? That's an entirely separate question. I'm not sure. This defense did limit Baltimore pretty well in the playoff game. We're able to rise to the occasion. I don't know that I would bank on that being a consistent thing every time that they go toe-to-toe. I mean, Derrick Henry put up 199 against them in their early matchup, but then again, they didn't have healthy linebackers. So I don't know. I think that's just the way that he's saying, I'm banking on athleticism and on the ability to go make plays. And that's the way I'm going to build my defensive line.
Yeah, I like it. Well, it's going to be interesting to see. And we're going to find out firsthand if they've improved on the run, because Baltimore Ravens and Derrick Henry are coming to town on September 7th. Yeah, week 1. So, all right, let's move on to linebacker. So, obviously, Terrell Bernard, Matt Milano, Dorian Williams, Joe Andreessen, and Shaq Thompson. Any surprises here? I mean, Ulofoshio being cut, I was kind of a little, I mean, it's a 5th-round pick, so, but it's from last year. So being course corrected immediately on that.
Yeah.
Never really saw any signs of something that could come and blossom from him. I am intrigued with Shaq Thompson because he's healthy. Not saying he's going to, revert back to Shaq Thompson from a few years ago with the Panthers. But how do you feel about the linebacker room? You think it's pretty solid? Because last year they went and they made all these free agent acquisitions and did all this stuff. And then most of the guys were game day inactives, or they were released or whatever. And it was the same guys. So what's your thoughts on this year's crop of linebackers?
I love it. If Bernard and Milano are healthy, that's arguably the best linebacker duo in the NFL. I love that combo. Dorian Williams, hyper athletic, proved to be able to hold his own, really developed a lot with Milano out. I love him as the third. Joe Andreessen just keeps growing and making plays and carving out a role in this team. And he's got, special teams ability as well, plays a good role there. So good for him. Good for Buffalo Joe. Shaq was a bit of a surprise. I thought that this could have been where they maybe went 10 offensive linemen and Shaq didn't make it. That was a thought that I had. But we'll see. I'm kind of curious about whether or not Shaq Thompson is a cut candidate when you have the suspended players coming back as well. I'm not sure. We'll see kind of what that looks like down the road. But all in all, great linebacker core. As long as they're healthy, knocking on my desk, then it's a great group that's capable of really running the show.
I was a little concerned about Joe Andreessen playing 60-plus snaps against the Bears. I was like, what are we doing? Like, he's playing the whole game. Like, I was a little concerned, but I don't know if they were just because they didn't want to put anybody else out there. They didn't have anybody else they wanted to put out there. I don't know. Plus, the game got out of hand pretty quick. So maybe they're just like, all right, Joe, just go do your thing. All right, defensive backs. I'm not going to categorize them between corners and safety because there's a couple tweener guys in here. Christian Benford, Tre'Davious White, Dorian Strong, Jamarcus Ingram, Taron Johnson, Cam Lewis, Brendan Codrington, Taylor Rapp, Cole Bishop, Damar Hamlin, and Jordan Hancock. Any surprises in there?
I would say no. I know there's been some questions about Codrington, and I know that they, as a team, didn't appear all that confident in him late in the season. But I think that he has shown an ability to be an explosive, punt returner, and I think that's why he makes this roster. But we'll see. I think that he's definitely a candidate also when you have IR guys and suspended players coming back to potentially go down to practice squad. But then it raises the question, who's going to be your punt returner? I personally, from my taste, Khalil Shakir is way too important to this team to put on punt return unless 100%. You're putting him back there just to call fair catches. I think I heard Talbot might have said that on his podcast as well, in which case, fine. Have him catch the ball and call a fair catch.
Right.
But that's not for me. I'd rather see Elijah Moore as a punt returner. He's super shifty in space. That's something that could work. But yeah, all in all, it's a good group-ish. But Trey White needs to be healthy for week 1. I know that he's not been ruled out yet. We'll see. That's going to be one of the biggest storylines over the next week and a half as we get close to the first game. Is Trey going to play? If he's not, cornerback 2 becomes obviously the biggest question mark on the entire team. Yeah,
I think it's entirely possible that Dorian Strong is CB2 if Tre'Davious White's not healthy. And I
love Dorian Strong. I thought we'd have to take him in the 3rd. I was shocked that he
another
was on the board.
6th-round pick playing across from a 6th-round pick. I mean, I don't know. To me about Codrington, and I won't go too long on this. To me on Codrington is they have to feel some way about him because the guys that were the usual suspects that were returning kicks and punts, they didn't bring back on the practice squad.
Right.
So they have to feel okay with him. I was a little concerned when he was returning punts in the 4th quarter of preseason games because I'm like, is he trying out? Like, what are we doing? Like, we have guys that like we know he's the guy. Put somebody else back there and see if there's anything else from some of these other guys. So I'm going to throw this out there too, and I might get some backlash from it, but don't be surprised if you see Jordan Hancock starting across from Taylor Rapp at some point at safety this season.
Totally.
Don't be surprised. I know he's banged up. He had the shoulder injury again. I believe it was against the Bears, right? Or was that against the Giants? It was the Bears game, right? Preseason
Bears game, yeah. Yep.
So I love the pick. He's doing nothing but great things. Training camp, preseason. Like I feel like he's a guy that you just need to watch out for. And that's not a knock on Cole Bishop because I'm hoping that Cole Bishop is this year's Terrell Bernard. Like none of us saw anything in him. We were all told to just relax. He's going to progress. He's going to learn. He's smart. He's physical, all this stuff, but we'll see. So other than that, I didn't really have any, nothing stood out on this list good for Jamarcus Ingram. I love the guy. Obviously another Hard Knocks darling. So it's going to be interesting. It's all going to rely heavily on, I can't even believe I'm saying this. I wouldn't have said this a year ago, but we're relying on Tre'Davious White to find out the health of Tre'Davious White for week 1. It boils down to that. So, and good thing is too, the Ravens heavy run team. So yes, you would like to have your best corners out there, but I do feel like week 1. And then if you look at the schedule after that, I feel like it's okay if we need to kind of ease somebody like a Dorian Strong in there. No surprise special teams, Tyler Bass, Brad Robbins, and Reed Ferguson. And then obviously the IR guys, you brought it up earlier, Maxwell Hairston, Tylen Grable, and then reserve suspended Michael Hoyt and Larry Ogunjobi. So overall, how do you feel as opposed to last year about the Bills 53? And then we'll kind of get out of here.
I personally think it's better than last year's. I know there's questions about CB2, but all in all, I like this wide receiver room a lot. I love Joshua Palmer. I've been a sucker for Palmer for a few years now, though, so that's definitely inflating my opinion of this team. But I think that he has a chance to make a serious impact on the offense. Dalton Kincaid, need a healthy season from you, need you to show that you are worth trading up for in the first, dude. You've got the ability. I know you do. I will never forget the monster college game that he had against USC where he single-handedly beat them. It was phenomenal. So show it. All in all, this is a team capable of competing for a Super Bowl. They're going to be right up there in the mix for the 1 seed of the AFC. I wanted to get Baltimore out of the way early in the year, but I didn't want it to be week 1 because the very first game of the year could come back to be the tiebreaker for home field advantage in the playoffs, which is scary. But we will see how that goes. I love that it's at home in prime time. That's Josh Allen time for sure. So all in all, this is a team that is worthy of being very excited about. It's potential for a storybook year as each of the last few years have been, but the last year in the stadium, this really, the magic is out there to be had. And I just really hope that we get it. I hope that it's a storybook season all the way through, home field advantage at home in the stadium for the last season. Finally get Josh Allen to ride off into the Super Bowl. Let's get it done.
Yeah, I'm so superstitious. I hate even thinking about the fact of the Bills playing the Chiefs at home in the AFC Championship game and the Bills win. Like I don't even want to put that out into the stratosphere because I'm so superstitious about. Yeah. But that is what would make this just remarkable run. Yeah. And that stadium would be insane. The last year there and to cap it off like that would just be insane. So I agree. Week 1's important for stuff that we just talked about, right? And you got to have all your guys going. And the good thing about week 1 against the Ravens is we will have our complete linebacking core. Knock on wood if nothing happens in the next 10 days. John's going to be with me every Tuesday. We're going to be live here on X, Facebook, and YouTube every Tuesday. We're going to give you guys all the insight of what's going on. Obviously, once the season ramps up, we're going to be talking about, obviously, coming off the game that just happened. We're going to talk about the news and notes of the week for the Bills, what's going on at practice, things like that. So, John, anything else before I take us out of here, man?
No, I'm just ready. Much like the players, I'm ready for the preseason to be done. Let's get to the regular season. I'm ready for some football. I'm stoked that we have finally made it through. 10 more days, roughly, and then we're for real. So I'm ready.
Yeah, I agree 100%. All right, for Jon Helmkamp, I'm Dave Myers. This is First and 5 on Built in Buffalo. We'll see you guys next time. As always, go Bills.